All right, let's start with a big question. What if wisdom wasn't some rare gift you're born with, but a skill you could actually practice? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on a pretty unique school that's built entirely around that idea, the Wisdom Workshop. We're going to dig into their own internal documents and hear from people who've been through it to really understand what it is, how it all works, and the kind of impact it's having.
And this question, right here, this is the big one. It's the idea at the very core of everything they do. You see it over and over in their notes because, let's be honest, it flips a common idea on its head, that you've either got wisdom or you don't. The workshop's whole premise is that wisdom is way more like a muscle than a magic trick. It's something you can intentionally build up, with the right kind of practice.
So, what is the Wisdom Workshop really? Well, their own documents describe it as a very intentional step away from the kind of education most of us are used to. It's not about just cramming your head with facts, it's about real personal transformation. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. They frame this whole shift as moving from a traditional university to what they call a pluriversity. Think about it. The old model is often top-down, a bit rigid, and it kind of treats learning like a thing you finish. The pluriversity, on the other hand, it's all about community, collaboration, and the belief that learning is a messy, beautiful, lifelong journey. And wow, this quote from an alumna, Leslie Taylor, just says it all, doesn't it? It perfectly captures the mindset. People aren't there to get a certificate to hang on the wall or another line for their resume. The real goal is a state of being, an experience. It's all about the process, about the feeling, not just the final destination. So, the big question is, how do they actually pull this off? I mean, how do you create a space where wisdom can actually grow? Well, it turns out it's built on a really specific method and a super clear set of tools, so let's dive in. The whole thing is rooted in this idea they call third-generation coaching. Now, this isn't your typical coaching where someone gives you advice and tells you what to do. Nope. This is all about creating a space for you to think, to reflect. The facilitator isn't some guru with all the answers. They're more like a fellow human in the room, just helping the conversation along so you can find your own meaning. And this whole philosophy plays out in this beautifully simple three-step cycle. First, you read. You take in new ideas from philosophy, art, you name it. Then, and this is key, you make something. You get your hands dirty with those ideas through writing or reflecting, making it personal. And finally, you share what you made with your group. This simple loop transforms learning from something passive into an active, creative, and really powerful shared experience. The actual curriculum is built around these 7 pillars, and they basically act as a guide for the whole journey. Each week dives into a different theme, from things like being more present or getting clear on your purpose, to the importance of play and getting projects off the ground. It's this amazing, holistic framework that holds the entire experience together, making sure you're both looking inward and acting outward. But here's the thing. The framework, the tools, that's only half the story. The workshop's own materials are super clear that the other half, and maybe the most important half, is the community itself. I mean, this quote from alumna Dana Spanger just nails it. The people in the group aren't just students, they are the curriculum. The real learning happens in the conversations, in the shared stories, in the collective wisdom that just kind of bubbles up when you get the right group of people together. So how do you make that happen? Well, it turns out that group size is absolutely critical. In their internal notes, the number 9 pops up again and again as their magic number for a group. And it makes sense, right? It's that sweet spot, small enough for real intimacy, where everyone's voice can actually be heard, but just big enough to bring in a real diversity of experiences and perspectives. And what you get when you design it this carefully is an environment they call communitas. Now, this is a cool term from anthropology, and it basically describes this unique state where all the normal social hierarchies just melt away. It's a space that feels incredibly safe, where people can be their true selves and build connections that go way deeper than our usual social roles. Okay, so we've seen the philosophy, we've seen the tools, and we've seen how they build this amazing community. But what happens when you put all that together? What's the real-world impact of all this? Well, a huge part of the workshop's magic comes from who's actually in the room. As you can see from their data, the groups are intentionally diverse, with people from all walks and stages of life. Yeah, the biggest chunk is folks from 36 to 50, but look at that. You have people in their 20s learning alongside people over 65. This mix of generations is so crucial for creating that rich, powerful learning environment we were just talking about. And you can really see the impact of that in the stories. Take this quote from Monica Eichmann, who's a nurse, when she says she got back into a relationship with herself. Wow. That just perfectly captures that deep sense of reconnection and self-awareness that people talk about. It's a huge internal shift. But it's not just a feeling inside. That internal transformation almost always leads to external action. The workshop's materials have a great name for this. They call it launching projects of worth. These are meaningful things that have a real impact beyond just the individual. And this is a perfect example of what that looks like. Alumna Maya Ortega took the clarity she found in the workshop and channeled it into a real-world project for her community. She didn't just have a nice idea, she took action. She organized, wrote letters, and ended up securing a huge amount of funding for local artists. That is a project of worth, right there in action. So, we'll end with this really powerful thought from their own philosophical notes. The whole point of the Wisdom Workshop, it seems, is to help people tackle the kinds of projects you can't just find a how-to guide for on the internet, the ones that need deep inner work first. And it leaves us with a question that goes way beyond the workshop, a question for all of us, really. What is the ungoogleable project that you are meant to build?